The Bundoran Weekly is brought to you by AIB, supporting local businesses in Bundoran. For more, see aib.ie.
Hi everyone, it's Shane Smyth, Bundoran Tourism Officer. It is Friday the 24th of March 2023 and I'm here with you for the Bundoran Weekly Podcast, episode 225. It is the podcast that talks about everything Bundoran. Before we go any further, let me say thank you to everybody who was with us for St. Patrick's Day, or who was part of our parade, or who helped in any way to make last weekend such a huge success. It was great to see so many thousands and thousands of people in town, and also taking part in the parade as well. A couple of hundred people in the parade, and it was a really enjoyable day, I think, by all, and we thank everybody for being here, particularly our guests from our Duselage town partners across Europe. We had guests here from Altea in Spain, we had guests from Meersen in the Netherlands, and we had a 17 strong delegation from Sesimbra in Portugal, and they brought the Susana Batuta Karanga band with them, and they performed in the parade as well, and it was great to have them. And thank you very much again to anybody who made the day a success. Really appreciate it, and it was a really big day here in Bundoran, and a really big weekend right across last weekend. Moving on to today, and today is Daffodil Day, and perhaps no more fitting than we were talking to Paul McLoone a little bit later on. He's going to be bringing his event called Let's Talk About Cancer to the Abbey Centre in Ballyshannon on the 13th of May, and we're going to be talking to him all about that a little bit later on. And as usual, Teresa is here from Bundoran Community Centre in our community corner. Let's start, as always, with our entertainment guide for this weekend. In the Allingham, it's John Glenn and Brian Kerrigan with Kieran Mackery in the Coolmore Bar. That's tonight. Tomorrow night, it's Trevor Lockery in the Coolmore Bar, and Olivia Douglas and her band in the Ballroom, and Sinead McLaughlin then in the Coolmore Bar on Sunday from 8 until 10 p.m. Next door in the Bird's Nest, it is Norman Borland there tomorrow night, and Sunday evening is music with Vincey Walmsley. Gary Doherty tonight at the Chase and Bull, and the Fabulous Franks are there tomorrow night. The usual trad session at George's Bar Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock. Tonight at the Phoenix, you've got music with Gav Kelly, and Off the Rails there tomorrow night, and Sunday night it's JPK followed by Punching Seagulls. And they of course want us to remind you that Derek Warfield and the Young Wolf Tones there Easter Sunday night the 9th of April, and then that's followed a couple of weeks later by the Hothouse Flowers on the 22nd of April, and then the 24th of April it is Pete and Diesel Still in Search of Murdo John's Long Gone Long John's Part 2. I think that's about right. That's all at the Phoenix Tavern. You can check out their Facebook page for more details there. Jerry McGinley tomorrow night then at the Railway Bar, and Paris, of course, open this and every Saturday night on Main Street. More details on our website, discoverbundoran.com/events. You'll find all of the information there, and that gets updated constantly as well, so do check back often for various updates there. If you want to go to the cinema, well, Shazam! Fury of the Gods is in the Eclipse Cinema, and John Wick Chapter 4, Missed It Monday, is the Avatar movie, The Way of the Water. That's in 3D. Including Oscar award-winning, the guy who animated it, who went to school in my old college, in fact, in Ballyfermot in Dublin, and well done to him. Classic Pretty Woman also screening tomorrow night at 8:30. You can find the full schedule on our own website at discoverbundoran.com/cinema, or indeed at eclipsecinemas.com, where you can also book as well. And now, if you're looking ahead to Easter, then discoverbundoran.com/Easter is no further than you need to look for all of the information on everything that is happening over the Easter holidays. And of course, the big thing, of course, was that Waterworld went on sale last Monday. So if you want to get into Waterworld over Easter, it is opening on the 3rd of April at 11 a.m. and the slots are selling out fast. So you can get on to waterworldbundoran.com/booking, and you can book your slot there for over the Easter holidays. So do that if you want to avoid disappointment and get in your slot early. So still to come on the Bundoran Weekly Podcast, I'm going to be chatting to Paul McLoone about his event called Let's Talk About Cancer on the 13th of May at the Abbey Centre in Ballyshannon. And Teresa O'Neill will be with us from Bundoran Community Centre in our Community Corner. Do stay with us.
The Bundoran Weekly.
I'm Shane Smyth and it's the Bundoran Weekly Podcast, episode 225 for this Friday, the 24th of March 2023. It is Daffodil Day, and I want to remind you that the community centre on the main street is holding a Daffodil Day, a coffee morning, and they are doing that up until 1 o'clock this afternoon. Now, a brand new event called Let's Talk About Cancer. It's a morning of music and chat, has been confirmed for the Abbey Centre in Ballyshannon. There's going to be guests like Brian Kennedy, Nicky Bradley, Ortiz Evelyn O'Rourke, and plenty more besides, and it is all happening on Saturday the 13th of May at the Abbey Centre in Ballyshannon. Over it is Paul McLoone, Ballyshannon man, 6-time cancer survivor, and I sat down with him during the week to have a chat about the event.
Paul, thanks for joining me on the podcast this week, and your Let's Talk About Cancer event is coming up in May, but let's talk about first why we're talking about it. And you're no stranger to the disease.
No, I've had cancer 6 times. Uniquely, I was the manager of Sligo Hospital one time in the late 90s, and actually one of the last jobs I did there was we commissioned a new oncology unit, but I didn't know at that time. I actually moved there into tourism in 2000, but I've been a frequent patient in that very same oncology unit, and I can tell you I didn't at the time build it for myself, but that's how the turns and twists in life come. So I was first diagnosed with cancer in 2006, and I've had frequent episodes of it since, but thankfully I've got through it, and that's the main thing. So I'm very passionate about things Northwest, be the hospital and especially community supports, and that's the reason for this event that's coming up on the 13th of May.
It must be kind of like 6 times now at this point, and you're like, is it gone for me, or are you always kind of like, maybe it might come back?
Oh yeah, I've never used the term cancer free because it has come back on frequent occasions. So I don't know, to be quite honest with you, but you kind of, when you're in health situations, you go from one appointment to the other, and it goes out of your mind in between. So at the moment, the last time I had surgery in the Mater Hospital in January 2021, and that was skin cancer in my eye, which had to be reconstructed, and I got a plastic surgeon working at me at long last.
Right.
But as I joked with him at the time, I said, "You're about 40 years too late." But that was a surprise for me. I most certainly didn't expect that. It was a tumour in the eye, and he held it in his hand opposite me, and there was 100 stitches put in there. Now I'll turn the other way here. I don't want anyone looking at it.
Well, now if as I look at you now, you wouldn't notice anything at all. So,
but that's the kind of, as you mentioned, Shane, that's the surprises that sometimes come at you. So you have to be vigilant, amongst other things.
Of course. So the event, Let's Talk About Cancer. I suppose there's no point me asking you why, but where are you having the event?
Well, the reason is because I've had cancer so many times. I do frequent work for the Irish Cancer Society. Some of it being talking at events, some of it being just on the phone and talking to individuals. And a frequent thing that is said to me is that he or she is sitting at a home, they're bottling it up, they're not talking about it or to anybody. I always say to somebody that cancer is not just about you. It affects all your family, so it's very important to share it. So the reason for the event in Ballyshannon is that actually the Northwest is the envy of the country with regard to voluntary support services, be it in Wine Street in Sligo and Donegal Town, Cancer Care West in Letterkenny, Relay for Life in Letterkenny. So we have magnificent people, which I used frequently, and kind of life-saving interventions. So it's just to prompt people, you don't push people into anything. But I'm just prompting them to say, that if you encounter difficulties, do lift the phone. The easiest thing for our podcast, Shane, is to mention cancer.ie, who have a free phone, and just ring that number, and they'd put you in contact with the support networks in the Northwest. And fair play to the voluntary sector, all the interventions for me were free of charge. Speech therapists, psychotherapists, psychologists, all kinds of interventions. And I just know for a fact, as I said, that we're the envy of the country, which supports the people when they come home. And when you come home is 96, 97% of what happened to you when you have cancer, just a bit in the hospital.
Wow, okay. Speaking of envy, you've got a fairly envious list of guests that are going to be taking part on the day as well.
Yeah, well, that's kind of funny, Shane, because as I said to you, I go and speak at events, but they're always in Dublin and or in Belfast or certainly in a major urban centre. So I said to a number of the medical companies, Cancer Society, says, what about running one of these in the Northwest? And really, no one was biting. So as I was so much in the tourism time when I was there, I used to give out to them in Dublin and that. So I kind of lost my patience and said, well, what if I run it in Ballyshannon? Will you support me? And that's where I came about. So some of the events, I would have seen some of these people speaking at it. So no more than I know you'd be good at yourself. Like it was email, it was social media. You made contact with these people. Some I didn't know, but fantastic and kind of response I got. You know, the first one I was targeting, because I've seen him on TV, was Brian Kennedy, who I met once. He was speaking at an event for about a minute.
Sure.
And I just says, I'm Paul McLoone from Ballyshannon. And when I sent the email, I says, it's Paul McLoone from Ballyshannon again. So whether he remembered me or not, he after about 4 emails, he said yes. Then Majella O'Donnell, I have a cousin from Dunlow. She made the first contact, and then I got the email address. Exactly. And so on like that. And like some extremely good people like Martin McHugh, who's from Leitrim. He's not the Donegal footballer, but he was a Leitrim footballer. But he was very helpful, and he's actually a porter in Sligo Hospital now. Right. So, and he's mad spreading the word, and he's a great man at speaking, and especially about men. Then my own surgeon for all of this was a guy called Martin Caldwell, who was originally from Donegal Town. He's now a specialist surgeon in Sligo Hospital. And I think it's good for, our people to hear these people firsthand. So that's among, and the lady Evelyn O'Rourke from RTE. That was a cold turkey approach.
Right.
And a very nice lady.
And if you don't ask.
Well, you know what I offered, and I know you're going to shame me now. I said to her, I'm going to give you a weekend in Rossnowla. Well, I actually gave her the choice of it. She said, do you want to come to Bundoran instead? But she chose Rossnowla.
Not so bad. And of course, also speaking of RT, and a man who has had his own cancer problems as well, Tommy Gorman, absolute legend, and he's going to be your MC for the day. Tommy's
just a great man. I met him in Johnson's Court for a cup of coffee there one morning, more by accident. And Tommy, I knew, who had worked closely with my brother Michael, who was the manager in Donegal County Council, and they did some cross-border work. And he was always asking for, and I says, Tommy, because we'd all seen and heard Tommy's own cancer story. Like, he's managing cancer for 28 years. And he'd done a piece with Niall Delaney in the Hawkswell. And I just sent an email to Tommy, who's also a passionate Sligo Rover. So yes. I'm assisting Finn Harps build a new stadium.
Right.
So my first line was about Sligo Rovers having a great season. By the way, Tommy, would you do this event? And Tommy was back within hours. Yes. Everything you asked Tommy is yes. And I think he'll be excellent at this. And, I don't have to market this as much as I did in some things in tourism because the lineup itself is doing the job for me.
So the lineup, and it includes talks and it includes music, and I know you have some local musicians as well taking part.
Well, the music is very important because sometimes you go to any event where there's a lot of speaking, and no offence to people, but if I was doing it myself, I'd nearly ask the audience, I'm going to bore you to death if I keep going here. So it's the mix and just to enjoy the event. So I was in Letterkenny at an event, and the Relay for Life Donegal Survivors Choir, every one of them is a survivor of cancer. So they're only too delighted to open the event. And then Dermot McGee and Dean James. And importantly, at everything I ever do in cancer, Shane, I always remember those who passed, because by mile the hardest thing about having cancer for 17 years is how close you get to people who don't make it. So the guys are going to sing a song in remembrance of which we will remember some of these people. I can't remember everybody in the reflective piece, but it will be a time for reflection for all the audience, and we hope that on social media some of these things will be posted afterwards with the important message at the end, of course, to do pick up the phone and look for support. So even if someone can't come to the event, I think we'll have a lot of clips of it which will be out afterwards.
Who should go to the event?
Well, it's open. Every family in the Northwest is affected by cancer. So it's open. It's a public event, and it's an awareness event. It is not, for specialist subjects or anything like that. It's just open to cancer. So you are a family member. So all of us are going to say yes to the family member. So everyone, and the tickets, by the way, I think there's well over 200 gone already. Wow. So there's not a huge amount of them left. Yeah. So if anyone who is watching or listening to this is interested in going, the abbeycentre.ie, I'd encourage them to maybe book earlier rather than wait for the last week, because I don't think there'll be any available in the last week.
Sure thing, and we'll put the link to that in the show notes for the podcast as well. Paul, it sounds like a fantastic event, and I'm sure it's all kind of organised, or have you just a few nips and tucks now to do at this point, or?
Well, look, everything I have to finance it, but leave that to me. I'll manage that. Look at the event. I do want to give a little piece of the proceeds, all of the proceeds actually, to local charities. Sure. So I'll find sponsors, don't worry about that. And I want to make a donation to a local cancer charity. And I also, with Magello O'Donnell, because the Relay for Life big event is on in Letterkenny in the middle of June. And we want to create awareness about that. And if people do want to donate money, I'd encourage them, the Relay for Life, and Magello O'Donnell in particular is going to be mentioning this at our event. And, if there's a call to arms for finance, that's the thing I'd really support.
And of course, if there's anybody listening that would like to sponsor you, do get in touch, and I will happily send you Paul's number, no problem. And it's very fitting today as we broadcast this. It is Daffodil Day, a huge fundraising part of the Irish Cancer Society, and everybody will be familiar with that.
Yeah, Daffodil Day is actually the main way the Irish Cancer Society is financed. It's kind of annoying for me when I come from the health system that a lot of the charitable organisations, the better they are at fundraising, the less the government give them. Yeah. And it's rather annoying, but actually it's hugely important for the Cancer Society that everyone supports Daffodil Day. They have a great organisation in behind it. I was at their Daffodil Day lunch last week in Dublin, and they have just an enormous effort put into this, and every one of us should support them. And in Bundoran, Ballyshannon, Sligo, no matter where you are, you're going to see someone. So please donate on Daffodil Day. It's very important for the society.
Paul, best of luck with the event, and thanks for joining us.
Cheers.
The Bundoran Weekly.
Ticket sale details for the event on our show notes for the podcast, and thanks to Paul, and best of luck with the event. We'll be letting you know a little bit more about that in the weeks to come. Alright, let's head now to Bundoran Community Centre. In our community corner, here's Teresa O'Neill.
Thanks, Shane. We have seafront strollers every Tuesday at 12 p.m. This is a stroll around the promenade and back to the centre for tea and coffee. This is €2 per person. If you are 12 to 17 years and would like a safe place to meet with friends, play games, have hot chocolate and play pool, join the Youth Hangout every Wednesday, 4:15 to 5:30 in the Rogie Suite. Citizens Information is here every second Wednesday in the community centre. The next date is the 29th of March from 10 a.m. to 3:30. The Bundoran Bay Swim this year is on Saturday the 29th of July. This is a fundraiser to raise money for the Bundoran Community Centre. If you would like to sign up or find out more, check out www.bundoranbayswim.com.
Thank you, Teresa, and we will talk to you again next week. That is where we leave it for the podcast for this week.
Shane.
Thank you for listening as always. Thanks for getting in touch. And if you want to get in touch, you can contact us by email. It's podcast@bundoranweekly.com, and you can find us on Facebook and Twitter as well at Bundoran Weekly. If you're at our St. Patrick's Day parade, or indeed if you missed it and you want to have a look at it, it is on our Facebook page, and you can check out the live broadcast from the Facebook page on St. Patrick's Day at Discover Bundoran on Facebook. We will be back next week with thanks to AIB.ie, supporting local businesses in Bundoran and Ballyshannon. From me, Shane Smyth, have a great week, and we'll talk to you then. Bye.
The Bundoran Weekly is a production of Discover Bundoran.
The Bundoran Weekly is brought to you by AIB, supporting local businesses in Bundoran. For more, see AIB.ie.